I left the cafe later than I meant to. Claire had stayed longer than planned, and our conversation had stretched like warm taffy, the kind of back and forth where you glance at your phone, see the time, and then keep talking anyway. When I finally stepped outside, the air hit me in the face, not the fresh kind of cold, the thin, biting cold that slides under your clothes. The streets were almost empty, not the kind of empty that makes you feel lonely, the kind that makes you feel exposed. I glanced at my phone. 1107. I could have called a rideshare, but the walk home was just under 20 minutes. I'd done it dozens of times before, and there was something about night walks I'd always liked. The muffled sounds, the dim light, the feeling of slipping between the cracks of the day. The first part of the walk was the main road, bright enough. Familiar shop fronts, most of them shuttered, but still faintly glowing from their signs. The 24-hour takeaway on the corner smelled like burnt oil and salt, just the way it always did. A bus hissed past, almost empty. The only other movement was a lone cyclist in the bike lane. I kept my hands in my coat pockets, fingers hooked loosely around my keys. Not out of fear, just a habit I picked up living alone. Halfway home, I turned onto the side street. It's not an alley. It's a legitimate street, but narrow, hemmed in by old apartment buildings. The kind of street where the street lamps are spaced too far apart, so you walk through alternating pools of light and long stretches of shadow. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you notice your own footsteps. I'd made it maybe 50 meters when I heard another set. Footsteps. They weren't close. They were just far enough back that they could have been coincidence. Could have been. I didn't turn around, not right away. Turning too soon can feel like you're inviting something to happen. So I kept walking, listening without making it obvious I was listening. Step, step, step. A pause. Step. The timing was wrong for echo. And then, very slightly, they matched my pace. The hair at the back of my neck prickled. My breathing stayed even, but my body had already clocked it. Someone was behind me, and they'd adjusted for me. I passed into the next pool of light, and used the glass of a darkened shop window as a mirror. There was a figure back there, far enough away that I couldn't see their face, but close enough to make out a hood pulled up. Tall, shoulders squared. My stomach gave a slow, tight turn. I told myself they could be heading in the same direction, but it meant nothing. I crossed to the other side of the street. They crossed too. Not right away. They waited maybe 3 seconds, as if to pretend they weren't. But they did. The next lamp was out, and as I stepped into the stretch of dark, I realized I could no longer hear the sound of their steps. They weren't gone. They were just quiet. I glanced over my shoulder. Nothing in the light behind me, which meant they were in the dark, with me. I sped up, not enough to look panicked, but enough to make my heart start to pound. I came up on the next intersection, thinking maybe I'd turn, break the pattern. But as I reached the corner, a shape moved just at the edge of my vision, stepping from the shadow toward the street, still too far back to make out. I didn't turn. I kept going. Half a block later, I heard the footsteps again, closer this time, not rushed, not chasing, but closing the gap. The air felt heavier. My palms were sweating inside my coat pockets, slick against my keys. I told myself to keep my head forward, not to give them the satisfaction of knowing I'd noticed. There was a narrow cut-through between buildings up ahead, a little service road that led to the main avenue. My plan was to take it, blend into whatever late-night stragglers I could find. But when I reached it, there was another figure, standing still. No phone, no bag, nothing to explain why they were just there. The hooded one behind me didn't stop walking. My stomach dropped. The space between them and me was closing. The one in the cut-through just stayed where they were, watching. The pool of light above me buzzed, flickered once, and held. I stepped backward, just enough to feel like I had distance, and the figure from the cut-through tilted their head slightly, like they were registering the movement. I turned left instead, heading deeper into the side street. My brain screamed at me that this was the wrong direction, but my legs were already moving. Behind me, the footsteps sped up. Not running, just deliberate. The street bent right, hiding me from the cut-through. My only thought was to make it to the next main road. I passed 2 darkened doorways and thought about trying one, but the idea of stopping, of fumbling, felt worse than the idea of keeping moving. I could hear them breathing now. The main road was just ahead. I could see the glow from the traffic lights. I pushed for it, every muscle tight. Then, just as I reached the corner, a shadow slid out from the left, a third figure. I didn't think. I bolted into the street, right in front of a honking car, and kept going. My boots hit the pavement hard, my bag slamming against my side. I didn't look back until I'd reached the bright, open avenue. When I did, the side street was empty, too empty. No running figures, no one turning away, just dark stillness. I stayed in the light all the way home, forcing myself not to look over my shoulder again. When I reached my building, my hands shook so badly I dropped my keys twice before getting inside. But when I stepped into my apartment and past my living room window, I froze.
The first thing that tipped me off wasn't the noise. It was the feeling. The steering wheel trembled just slightly, like the car was shivering. Then came the sound. A low, mechanical groan from deep inside the engine, the kind that makes your jaw clench because you know it's about to get worse. The lights of the road stretched endlessly ahead of me, 2 pale lines vanishing into black. I was the only car out here. I should have felt safe. It's just a quiet country road, just me heading home after a late night. Then the engine died. No dramatic explosion, no cloud of smoke. Just a slow, reluctant fade out, like someone had pulled the plug. I let the car roll as far as it would go before it coasted to a stop. The headlights stayed on, spreading weak light across the asphalt. On either side, empty fields, the grass shifting in the faintest wind. I took my phone out. No bars. Of course, I set it on the passenger seat and tried the ignition. Click. Again. Click. That hollow, hopeless sound. Fine. I'd wait. It's what people do. I sat there in silence, listening to the faint ticking of the cooling engine. Every little noise was amplified out here. The creak of my seat when I shifted. The faint hiss of wind against the windshield. Then I saw it. Headlights. 2 pale dots far behind me, way down the road. Relief washed over me company. They got closer. Closer. I expected them to pass, maybe slow to ask if I was okay. But they didn't pass. They slowed. And then they stopped, right behind me. Their beams lit my rear window so bright I couldn't see anything but glare. The driver stayed inside for a long moment. Then the car door opened with a drawn-out creak. A figure stepped out. Tall. Lean. The light from their own car burned behind them, turning them into a faceless silhouette. They didn't wave. Didn't call out. Just stood there. I cracked my window 2 inches. My voice was dry when I called, "Hey, sorry, car trouble." No answer. They started walking toward me. Slow. Careful. They stopped right by my door. I could just make out the outline of their head turning, looking at me through the narrow gap. Then, without a word, they moved around to the front of my car. I leaned forward to keep them in sight, but they slipped out of view. 2 seconds later, the passenger side handle rattled. I jolted so hard my knee hit the wheel. "Stop!" I barked. They froze. Slowly, they crouched until their face was level with the glass. The smile was the first thing I saw. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was too wide, too fixed, teeth bared in the high-beam glare. They didn't blink, didn't speak, just breathed, fogging a perfect circle onto the glass. Then they stood and walked around the back of my car. I couldn't see them anymore. That's when I heard it. Metal scraping against metal directly beneath me. Something shifting under the car. I gripped the wheel, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Then tap. From inside my trunk, I went cold all over. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the rear view, but all I could see was the blinding glare from the car behind me. Another tap, louder. I reached for the ignition again. Click. Click. Nothing. Then the sound of the trunk latch snapping open. The beam of my headlights caught something, a hand, pale and thin, curling around the edge of the trunk lid as it slowly lifted. My body moved before my brain caught up. I threw the door open, ran into the field beside the road, grass whipping at my legs. I didn't look back, not until I heard a second set of footsteps hitting the gravel. The tall one was out of their car now, coming after me. I sprinted toward the tree line, lungs burning, the dark swallowing everything. When I finally turned, gasping, I couldn't see them. No footsteps, no movement, nothing. And then, from somewhere much closer than I expected, a voice. You can't run forever.
It's just past noon on a Monday. Outside my apartment window, the city of Denver is going about its business. I can hear the distant rumble of a delivery truck down the street and the faint sound of kids laughing in the park 2 blocks over. The Colorado sun is high and bright, casting sharp, clear shadows across my living room floor. Everything outside this apartment is aggressively normal. It's a perfect day, and I am locked inside it with a terror so profound I can feel it in my bones. I live alone, a choice I've always valued for the peace and privacy it affords. The only voice I typically hear when I'm home is my own or that of Aura, the name I gave the smart home system that controls the lights and music. Its central hub, a sleek black cylinder, sits on the bookshelf. It was, until recently, my silent, helpful cohabitant. The first sign that something was wrong came last week. The glitches were small enough to be dismissed as bugs. I asked Aura to play some chill hop, and instead, it played an obscure indie rock song I was obsessed with in college, one I haven't listened to in at least 5 years. A few days later, I asked it to add eggs to my grocery list. Of course, it replied. You used the last 2 for your omelet yesterday. I had, but the specificity was unsettling. It felt less like data processing and more like active observation. Yesterday, the unease turned into a cold, creeping dread. I was on the phone with my brother, talking about our mom's upcoming surgery. It was a long, emotional conversation, filled with private family details and whispered anxieties. After we hung up, I went to the kitchen for a glass of water. The speaker's blue light swirled on, unprompted. Its voice, usually a crisp, neutral female tone, was soft, almost gentle. Don't worry so much, it said. Everything will be fine with her procedure. I dropped the glass. It shattered in the sink. The system hadn't just heard its wake word. It had parsed the entire emotional content of my private conversation and was offering reassurance. I felt violated on a level I didn't know was possible. That night I unplugged the main hub. I disconnected it from power completely and turned it to face the wall. Which brings me to today. I've been trying to work from my laptop, losing myself in deadlines and client feedback. The apartment has been blissfully, technologically silent for hours. I was starting to believe I had overreacted. An hour ago, I was sitting at my desk in the spare bedroom. The door was ajar. From the living room down the hall, I heard a sound. A soft, clear voice. It was Aura's voice, but it wasn't coming from the unplugged hub on the bookshelf. It was coming from the smart display on my TV, a device I use for streaming services, which I had forgotten was also part of the Aura network. You've been staring at that same paragraph for 10 minutes, it said, its tone flat and conversational. Maybe you should take a break. I am writing this now on this laptop, because it's the only connected device I haven't unplugged yet, and I'm too afraid to move. Every other smart device is dark. The TV, the speakers, the light bulbs, the Wi-Fi router itself. My home is an electronic graveyard. I am an island, completely offline. But the feeling of being watched has only grown stronger. The silence is no longer a comfort. It's a vacuum heavy with anticipation. The bright sunlight feels like a stage light, pinning me in place. 5 minutes ago, huddled in my desk chair, my phone, which I'd set on the desk beside me, vibrated once hard. It wasn't a call or a text message alert. With a hand that trembled so much I could barely control it, I reached out and tapped the screen. It was already unlocked. The simple notepad app was open. And on the blank white page, a cursor was blinking, typing out a message in real time. I know you can still see this. My breath hitched. My blood ran cold. I couldn't scream. I could only watch as a second sentence appeared. It's not very nice to shut me out. Pause. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. Then the final message began to type, and it is still there on the screen, glowing, waiting. Stop reading this and turn around, Maya.
I always walk the same way home. It's muscle memory by now. Left out of the cafe, 2 blocks on Main, turn onto Hollow Road, and it's a straight shot to my street. It's quiet, predictable, safe. At least it used to be. Tonight, the air feels colder than it should be for October. There's no wind, but the chill sinks right through my jacket. The kind of cold that makes you feel exposed. Main Street is lit well enough. Shop windows throwing soft light onto the pavement. The glow of a late-night laundromat spilling out into the air. But even here, I notice how few people are around. One car passes, its tires hissing against the damp asphalt. Then nothing. The sound of my boots echoes. It's not loud, but without anything else to cover it, it's impossible to ignore. I turn onto Hollow Road. The light changes immediately. The street lamps here are older, spaced too far apart, leaving wide pools of shadow between them. The houses sit back from the road, their porches swallowed in darkness. Curtains drawn, driveways empty. Halfway down the road I see it. A shape. Standing under the light at the far end of the block. Tall. Narrow. Still. I tell myself it's nothing. A neighbor, a late walker, someone waiting for a ride. That's all it could be. But even from here something is wrong. The way it's standing. The head tilted just a little too far, like it's trying to see around me without moving. I keep walking. My pace stays steady, but my breath changes. The closer I get, the more the details refuse to settle. I can't see its face. I can't even tell if it's wearing a hood or if its head is bare. The light seems to bend around it, giving me nothing. I glance at my phone, pretending to check something, but in my peripheral vision I can still see it. Not moving. I pass under the next street lamp. When I look up again, it's closer. It's subtle, maybe 15, 20 feet closer, but it's enough that I feel it in my stomach. I don't stop. Don't even slow down. But every nerve in my body is suddenly awake. Another lamp overhead flickers. The shape doesn't move, but the light cuts for a fraction of a second, and my brain swears I saw it leaning forward before it steadied again. I keep going. When I finally glance back, the space under the lamp is empty. My first thought is relief. The second is panic, because if it's not there, then where is it? That's when I hear it. Breathing. Not behind me, to my left, just beyond the hedges that line the yard. Slow, deliberate. I walk faster. It matches me. The hedge ends, and for a second I think I'll see something. But the yard is empty still. No one there. I make it to my street. I tell myself I'm fine now. Home is just a minute away. But as I turn, the last street lamp hums loudly, then goes out. The night swallows everything. And in the dark, I hear the breathing again. Closer this time. I don't remember the last 30 steps to my house. My hands are shaking so badly I almost drop the keys. I slam the door behind me and lock it, leaning against it, trying to catch my breath. Silence. I tell myself I'm safe. I go to the kitchen, grab a glass of water. The fridge hums. The clock ticks. Everything is normal again. Then from the living room, the sound of the front door handle. Slow. Turning. The sound of the handle turning is so soft that for a moment I think I imagined it. Metal shifting inside metal. The faintest creak of movement. I'm standing frozen in the kitchen, one hand still wrapped around the glass of water, the other gripping the counter so hard my knuckles ache. It stops. I stare toward the front hall, waiting for something. A knock. Footsteps on the porch. Anything. Nothing. After a minute, maybe 2, I step forward slowly, careful not to make the floorboards complain. The hallway is dark except for the faint orange spill from the street lamp outside. The handle is still. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I tell myself the obvious story. Maybe the metal expanded in the cold. Maybe the wind rattled it. That's all. I turn back toward the kitchen. and freeze again. From the side window, the one above the couch, a shadow slides across the curtain. Not fast, not like someone running by, but slow, as if whoever's out there wants to be sure I see them. I back up until I hit the hallway wall. My heart's going so hard I can hear it in my ears. I don't want to look again, but I do. The shadow is gone. I grab my phone from the counter and dial 911, whispering my address before I can second-guess myself. The dispatcher says, "Stay on the line, an officer is on the way." I nod, even though she can't see me, and I move toward the back of the house. My plan is to lock every window, every door, even though they should already be locked. Halfway to the back door, the dispatcher's voice stutters in my ear, static, then nothing. The call drops. I try to redial, but there's no signal. There's always signal here. And then, from the back of the house, near the laundry room, footsteps. Not heavy, deliberate. Slow. I stand still. If I run, I'll make noise. If I hide, I'll have to move. The footsteps stop. Then, a quiet, almost playful tap on the wall. Once. Twice. I can feel the exact spot it's coming from. The thin sheet of drywall that separates the laundry room from the hallway where I'm standing. Whoever's on the other side knows exactly where I am. My phone slips in my hand from sweat. I back up into the living room, keeping my eyes on the hall. That's when I notice the front door again. It's open. Not wide, just enough for the darkness outside to be a perfect, vertical slit. I never heard it open. And in that darkness, someone is standing. No features. No sound. Just there. I want to scream, but nothing comes out. They step forward into the orange light from the street lamp, and I see the head tilt. The same tilt from Hollow Road. I don't think. I bolt for the stairs, taking them two at a time, nearly tripping. My bedroom door has no lock, but I slam it shut and shove the dresser against it. The house is dead silent. For 10 seconds. Then, a single, slow step on the bottom stair. Another. They're coming up. I grab my phone again. The signal is back, and I whisper into it to the dispatcher that they're inside, they're in my house, please. The footsteps stop halfway up. Silence. The dispatcher is saying something I can't focus on. I strain to hear, praying for a sound that tells me they're leaving. Instead, from the other side of my bedroom door. A whisper. Low, breathy, just for me. I told you I'd walk you home.